Well, we are here joined with the recently inaugurated, now official, President Virginia Horvath. Thank you so much for joining us today, President Horvath. Really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
Last time we spoke, oddly enough, you were still the Vice President of Academic Affairs, and we were in your office in the library, and we were speaking about President Hefner's last hurrah as president. And oddly enough, as well, that was the last time I was in this office speaking to President Hefner. And there's been some changes, I see. The artwork is now almost barren.
Yes. Well, and other changes too, just to freshen up the office, coat of paint, and simpler furniture, and the technology I need to do my job. So you see those changes.
Absolutely.
And there is a shelf over there that shows objects that I've received from international partners. I really wanted to highlight them and make it look like a gallery.
So you're now official, after your inauguration, you're officially the 13th President of SUNY Fredonia. But firstly, let's, if we could, go back to the very moment that you kind of realized that there was a possibility of becoming president. And that was, I'm sure, the first semester of 2011 in Roush during President Hefner's final all-campus address. Dr. Hefner announces his retirement. There's kind of a collective gasp within the audience. Mm-hmm. What was going through your mind at that point? I mean, it couldn't have been, I want to follow that guy. He was the longest tenured president in modern Fredonia history.
Right. And it's interesting because Dr. Hefner had told me and the members of cabinet a few days before, so that we were not among those gasping. We knew that moment was coming.
Okay.
But it's still, for all of us, and I'm speaking in my role as vice president, it's a shock for a campus. It's anxiety producing to go through the process of selecting a new leader and letting go of someone who has led the campus so successfully for 16 years. So all of us were, okay, here we go. We're whether we like it or not, we're in a moment of transition. And we all looked at our roles as how can we make sure that we have a good process, that we select a leader who's going to be effective for Fredonia and keep people calm through that process. So that was my first thought. And of course people were turning to me and saying, so are you going to ask to be considered? And my reaction was usually, well, we'll see, because it's a confidential process and it's not a campaign.
So you had considerations of becoming president prior to, because you had already known about the announcement. I mean, when was it that you said, this is the path that I want my career to take?
It was last year in October, so
okay.
It wasn't right away. I gave it a lot of thought, but I've been in training programs for presidencies a few times. 10 years ago, I was a fellow with the American Council on Education. I was a dean then and was nominated for that program and selected. But when I was in the very first day of that program in Washington, they talked to us all as if we'd become university presidents. And I was surprised by that. I thought, did I say I wanted to be a university president? But that's how they talked to us, and that's what that experience was. So 10 years ago, I was prepared in some ways.
That was your first inkling of that you wanted to possibly pursue that.
Yes, and then there was training that was appropriate for that, but I was a dean. I thought, I don't have the experience for that. So it was pushed, I would say, not even just to the back burner. It was pushed to the stove next door, and not something I was actively working toward. And then I went to another training session in June of 2011. Dr. Hefner had nominated me for the Millennium Leadership Institute. And I thought, well, I already had the kind of training they're going to be providing, and I've been doing this on the job, but it's been 10 years since I was in that other program, so I'll go. And it was about 4 days long in Washington. And when I was there and presented my resume to my mentor, there are mentors in that program, and said, I just need to know where you see gaps in my experience and in my resume if I were to consider a presidency. And he started laughing and he said, you don't have gaps. Why are you not applying? And I thought, well, I guess I should either stop thinking about it or apply. And so then when Dr. Hefner was announcing that he's leaving, I did give it thought and asked myself, is this the right move for me? Would this be good for Fredonia? Because that was my first question. What's going to be good for the campus? So I went through that process and a formal application.
Did your family think that you were absolutely nuts for thinking that?
They might already have thought that, so it wasn't anything new. You know, my husband is a faculty member, and so and he doesn't like administrators, so he already thinks I'm nuts. When I was a vice president, when I was a dean,
So during the selection process, two of the other three candidates had come from out of state for this, at the time that you were vying for this position. You must have been thinking that you had the upper hand the entire time, or an inherent advantage at least, during that selection process.
Well, in some ways, it has been very helpful in the transition because I already know the culture of SUNY, the way things work, the way our budget works, the way we connect with the Chancellor's office and the legislature. I know this region, so those things have all been helpful in the transition. But when there is a selection process, it can also be a disadvantage because I was vice president here for 7 years, so people know things about me and they're not all positive. So that can be the kind of thing where the person you know is not perfect, and outside candidates can sometimes look ideal.
Right.
So it's a mixed blessing, but I know it's been really helpful in the transition and that I'm further along at this point than I would be if I'd come from out of state.
Right, and after you had actually been selected, both the university and the town communities had done, I think, a very good job of seeing past you becoming the first woman president, female president of SUNY Fredonia. But I think it is significant just to explore it for a moment, because we live in a society that is generally perceived to be, is a gender perspective almost. And males are often paid higher than females. So being the first woman to be appointed president is obviously historic, as is the first anything elicits considerable attention. But does the pressure of being in that situation ever occur to you? Does it ever get to you?
I wouldn't say the pressure gets to me. I'm very aware of it. And I did receive things, several prominent women in the community and alums sent me clocks with a note.
Really?
It's about time that I did hear from women in the community and across SUNY and alums especially, saying that they were glad for this. But frankly, once they make that comment, what they're most interested in is whether I'm going to do a good job and whether Fredonia is going to be better off because of my being in this position. So I think that there may be certain kinds of comments that can be gendered. For the most part, I think people are past that. I don't know if because I'm a woman I bring a different approach to things. It may be, or it might just be my personality. It's hard to separate what is the person I am and to what extent is it gender. I don't know.
Right.
But when I consider that a little over half of our student body is female, I think it's important for them and for other girls in the community to see that women can achieve this level of leadership as well. My first public speech was to the Girl Scouts in town. The week that I was appointed, I had already been scheduled as a speaker for an anniversary event. And that mattered to the Girl Scouts, that was my first place to speak. And I went to an all-girls high school in Buffalo, and that school has already had me speak as well, that it's important for young women especially to see that there are choices for them.
Definitely. During your inaugural address, you talked about a lot of the accomplishments of past presidents. Leslie R. Gregory, for example, who served for 17 years, he presided over the school during World War II. Oscar Lanford, who oversaw the construction of many of the campus buildings that are now staples on this campus. And of course, Dr. Hefner, who had a pretty wide-ranging construction program of his own. Is it intimidating coming into a position like this during a time when you can comprehend that the not only the state economy but the nation's economy is not going to be in your favor? It
is interesting. I think I mentioned this during my inaugural address, but that chain of office that was put on me, it's pretty heavy, and it has the names of all those previous presidents, and it has pictures of the buildings. And I think there's some symbolism there in saying, this is what's on your shoulders. This is the legacy that has preceded you, and what are you going to do?
Right.
What's next? This is a particularly challenging time for our country because as we look at this presidential election, there's so much that seems to be at stake, and the old way of doing things in every arena, in the business arena, in civic engagement, certainly in higher education, in healthcare, the old ways, the word we keep hearing, are unsustainable.
Right.
But we don't have clear emergence of models. So that can be intimidating. It's not as if, how can you keep going on and be an advocate with your trip to the well for resources? The well is dry, so
Right.
there needs to be a different kind of approach, and that is uncertain at this point. I don't know if I'd say intimidating, but I certainly feel the weight of that.